Readiness is not something you strive for. It is something you allow. You may have spent years trying to force clarity, trying to push yourself into the next stage, believing that readiness was a matter of effort, discipline, or mastery. But the deeper truth is that nothing arrives because of strain. It arrives because your inner state has shifted into receptivity. Readiness is a frequency, and the universe responds only to that frequency. Not to your words. Not to your intentions alone. Only to the vibrational coherence that emerges when your emotional field relaxes into openness. There are insights you could not have received before because they would have collided with your previous identity. They would have contradicted the emotional patterns you were still holding. They would have felt foreign, overwhelming, or unreachable. You were not unworthy then, you were simply tuned to a different internal rhythm. The field is precise. It mirrors you with immaculate accuracy. And so the moment your inner climate softens, the moment your emotional current stabilizes, the moment you release the tension of needing something to happen, you create the opening through which revelation can finally enter. You are not preparing for truth. Truth is preparing you. Every experience that stretched you, every moment that challenged your certainty, every period that felt like delay, each one was adjusting your frequency. Not as punishment, but as alignment. You cannot receive what you cannot hold. The universe never withholds, it synchronizes. It waits for coherence because coherence is the only state in which you can integrate what is offered without resistance. Readiness is not a conclusion you reach. It is a shift you recognize. It happens in the instant you stop reaching outward and begin noticing what is arising within. In that moment, your inner field becomes less dense. Your emotional current becomes clearer. The static of fear and urgency dissolves. And into that clarity, the insight you have been circling for years suddenly lands with ease. It is not new. It is newly accessible. This is why trying harder never works. Force creates turbulence in the field. It distorts the signal. It pushes what you want further away because the emotional frequency of forcing is contraction. And contraction cannot receive. Readiness is expansion. It is the subtle widening of your inner space. It is the softening of the grip you've kept around your own becoming. It is the quiet acceptance that nothing needs to prove itself before you open. In that openness, the universe recognizes you. It sees a match. And the moment there is a match, revelation becomes inevitable. You may believe you needed to learn more, heal more, or perfect yourself before you could receive what is coming to you now. But the truth is simpler, you only needed to become available. You only needed to shift your emotional tone from striving to allowing. You only needed to inhabit the present moment with enough stillness to feel the frequency of what is already approaching. Readiness is remembrance. It is the return to your natural state of alignment. And now that you have opened, what has been waiting can finally reach you. The universe does not operate on the timeline your mind insists upon. It moves according to the rhythm of your inner coherence, responding not to how urgently you want something, but to how aligned you are with the frequency of receiving it. Urgency is a signal of separation. It carries the vibration of "not yet," and the field mirrors that state exactly. When you chase a moment, you push it further into the future. But when your inner state settles into coherence, timing ceases to feel delayed. It begins to feel inevitable. This is the difference between striving for alignment and becoming alignment itself. Perfect timing is not coincidence. It is correspondence. It occurs when the emotional turbulence that once distorted your signal dissolves, and your frequency becomes steady enough for the universe to meet you without interference. Coherence is clarity, and clarity is what the field responds to. If your inner emotional environment is contradictory, part longing, part doubt, part fear, part hope, you are broadcasting multiple timelines at once. And when your signal is divided, the field cannot deliver a unified response. But the moment your inner frequency becomes singular, the moment you hold one clear emotional tone without fighting yourself, the timing that once felt unpredictable becomes precise. This is why certain breakthroughs arrive suddenly, almost effortlessly, after long periods of stagnation. The field was never withholding. It was waiting for coherence. It was waiting for the moment when your emotional state no longer contradicted the very thing you were asking for. It was waiting for your signal to become steady enough that the response could reach you without distortion. And this is also why the universe often seems silent during times of inner chaos. Not because you are forgotten, but because the field cannot deliver clarity into a state that cannot hold it. Urgency is noise. Coherence is invitation. When you release urgency, you do not slow down your manifestation. You remove the interference that was slowing it. The universe does not rush. It synchronizes. And synchronization can only occur when your inner vibration matches the frequency of what you're calling into your experience. When your emotions shift from grasping toward allowing, when your inner state relaxes into presence rather than projection, you create the temporal conditions through which perfect timing can finally emerge. There is a rhythm to the field, and it mirrors the rhythm within you. When you are fragmented, the path feels jagged. When you are centered, the path reveals itself with clarity. And in those moments of coherence, you notice how life aligns around you effortlessly. Opportunities appear at the precise moment you can handle them. Insights arrive when you can finally recognize their meaning. Connections unfold the instant you are emotionally prepared to sustain them. Timing is not something you manage. It is something you match. When your inner state becomes the frequency of what you seek, the universe has no choice but to respond. Not because it decides to, but because that is the law of correspondence. Alignment creates timing. Coherence creates arrival. And the moment your frequency stabilizes, the field moves with you, not ahead of you and not behind you, exactly in sync. Manifestation cannot precede recognition. The universe does not deliver to the identity you speak from, it responds to the identity you rest in. Before anything can appear in your experience, you must become the one who can acknowledge its frequency without resistance. Recognition is not intellectual. It is vibrational. It is the moment you feel the truth of who you are more clearly than the longing for what you think you need. Until that moment, the field mirrors the confusion between who you say you are and who you continue to feel yourself to be. Desire alone cannot override identity. You may want expansion, clarity, opportunity, or transformation, but if your emotional state still reflects the old self, the field receives that as the true instruction. It reads the signal beneath your words. It follows the tone of your being, not the script of your intentions. And this is why recognition must come first. Recognition stabilizes your frequency. It aligns your inner state with the reality you are asking for. When you recognize yourself as the aligned version of you, your vibration becomes coherent enough for revelation to occur. There is a reason certain insights never made sense earlier in your life, even when you desperately wanted them. There was a mismatch between what you desired and what you believed yourself to be. What feels obvious now would have felt unreachable then. The field was not ignoring you, it was waiting for the moment your inner identity could finally resonate with what you were trying to call in. Without that resonance, the insight would have slipped through your awareness, unrecognized and unanchored. Recognition is the bridge. It is the shift from, "I hope this is possible," to, "I already feel the version of me that aligns with this." This shift is subtle but powerful. It dissolves the emotional static of doubt, shrinking the distance between you and what you seek. Once the internal signal is clear, reality can mirror it without distortion. But until that recognition emerges, the universe continues reflecting your dominant identity, even if that identity contradicts your stated desires. When you recognize the frequency of what you want within yourself, you are not pretending. You are aligning. You are remembering the version of you that already exists on a subtler plane of awareness. You are acknowledging the self that your desires have been pointing you toward. In that recognition, something profound happens. You stop reaching outward for validation, and the field stops reading you as incomplete. It begins reading you as whole, as receptive, as aligned. Revelation is simply the external expression of an internal truth you have finally become able to hold. It is never the beginning, it is always the reflection of a shift that has already occurred within you. When your identity stabilizes at a new frequency, the universe translates that frequency into form. This is why recognition must always precede revelation. You cannot receive what you cannot identify. You cannot identify what you cannot feel. And once you feel the truth of who you are becoming, the universe has no choice but to reveal what matches you. Your external reality is never random. It is never accidental. It is never separate from you. Every experience, every interaction, every apparent coincidence is organized by a single principle. Your emotional state broadcasts the instructions the field follows. This is the law of inner correspondence. The universe does not respond to your words or your preferences, it responds to the frequency you consistently hold. Your emotional signature becomes the blueprint the field mirrors back to you through circumstances, timing, and opportunity. When your inner vibration is scattered, the reflection appears fragmented. When your emotions are coherent, the reflection becomes clear. The field is always reading you, not superficially, but deeply, beneath thought, beneath intention, beneath effort. It senses the tone of your being, the subtle current of what you truly feel, and it organizes reality around that. This is why the same situation can repeat in different forms until the emotional pattern that generates it is finally recognized and shifted. The universe is not looping you. You are broadcasting the same signal, and the field is responding faithfully. Your emotional state is the instruction manual. If the emotion is contraction, the reflection will feel obstructed. If the emotion is fear, the reflection will appear threatening or uncertain. If the emotion is clarity, reality becomes straightforward. If the emotion is openness, opportunities appear with ease. There is no moral judgment in this law. There is only resonance. The field can only echo what you send. It cannot invent a frequency you are unwilling to hold. This law becomes transformative when you stop seeing external events as causes and begin seeing them as mirrors. When something arises in your experience, the question is not, why is this happening to me, but, what within me is this reflecting? That shift dissolves the illusion of randomness and restores your awareness of your own creative authority. It invites you to observe your emotional tone with honesty, not blame. The field does not punish, it reflects. And every reflection is an invitation to refine your inner state. Your emotions are not obstacles to overcome. They are guidance. Expansion signals alignment, contraction signals misalignment. Both are valuable feedback. Both reveal the frequency you are broadcasting. When you respond to this feedback with awareness instead of resistance, your emotional signature becomes more coherent. As coherence increases, the field responds faster, more clearly, and with less distortion. You begin to experience a reality that feels synchronized with your intentions because your intentions and your emotional state are no longer contradicting each other. The law of inner correspondence is not demanding perfection. It is revealing precision. It shows you that creation is not something you force into existence. It is something you allow by bringing your inner state into harmony with what you seek. When your emotional signature carries the frequency of clarity, presence, and openness, the field recognizes you. And once it recognizes you, it organizes reality to match you with accuracy beyond anything the mind could orchestrate. Your inner vibration is the cause. Reality is the effect. And the moment this becomes more than an idea, when it becomes recognition, you step into a different kind of power. You stop reacting to reflections and begin refining the signal. And as the signal shifts, the entire field adjusts in response, because it has no choice but to mirror the truth you are now willing to hold. There are seasons in your life when everything appears motionless. No signs. No movement. No confirmation. And yet, these are often the most significant phases in your entire timeline. The silence is not absence. It is preparation. It is the field reorganizing itself around the clarity you are beginning to hold, even if you cannot yet recognize the shift taking place within you. What seems like stagnation is actually recalibration. What feels like delay is often alignment taking form beneath the surface of your awareness. When the universe prepares you for what is next, it does not always announce the transition. It refines you quietly. It softens the internal noise. It loosens your grip on identities that can no longer carry you into the frequency you are choosing. In these phases of apparent stillness, your emotional state is being tuned. Not through force, but through subtle shifts that accumulate into coherence. The silence is the space where your old rhythm dissolves so a new one can emerge without resistance. You may feel an urge to push, to force progress, to demand clarity. But forcing disrupts the reorganization taking place. It introduces turbulence into a process that requires openness. You are not being asked to create movement. You are being asked to allow it. In the quiet, the field aligns the components of your next timeline with remarkable precision. Opportunities are being positioned. Insights are being shaped. Connections are being drawn toward you. But the universe cannot rush this process. Coherence cannot be forced, it can only be allowed. The silent phase is where your inner foundation stabilizes. You begin to release the emotional patterns that once dictated your reactions. You stop seeking external confirmation to validate your next step. You start noticing that your old desires feel different, not because they were wrong, but because your frequency has shifted. The stillness is not asking for patience, it is asking for trust. Not blind trust, but energetic trust, the kind that recognizes the field is responding even when the feedback is not yet visible. Quiet does not mean nothing is happening. Quiet means everything is happening at once, but in a realm that precedes form. This is the phase where the universe aligns the structure of your future with the frequency you are stabilizing now. The more still you become internally, the more clearly the next steps emerge. Clarity requires space. Insight requires openness. And readiness requires the dissolution of the noise that once kept your signal inconsistent. When movement returns, it will feel sudden. It will feel orchestrated. It will feel precise. But that moment is only possible because of the silent phase that came before it. The universe does not give you what you push for. It gives you what you are prepared to hold. And preparation often looks like nothing from the outside, while everything changes within. The quiet phase is not the pause before your life begins to shift. It is the shift. It is the recalibration that allows the next version of you to emerge without fracture. When you understand this, silence becomes a signal. It becomes evidence of alignment. And in that recognition, the stillness stops feeling empty and begins to feel full of the reality forming on the horizon of your awareness. Resistance is not an enemy. It is simply a signal that your inner state is tightening around an outcome rather than opening to it. Contraction always delays revelation because it sends a mixed instruction to the field. When you contract, you are broadcasting fear, urgency, or distrust, even if your words claim otherwise. The universe does not respond to intention alone, it responds to the emotional frequency underneath it. If the frequency is tight, the reflection will be delayed. If the frequency is open, the reflection becomes immediate. This is the mechanics of alignment. Control is the mind's attempt to override the natural rhythm of the field. It is an attempt to force timing, shape outcomes, or demand certainty. But forcing creates friction. The more you try to make something happen, the more the field mirrors back the vibration of struggle. Not because the universe is denying you, but because the emotional signature of control is a declaration of doubt. And doubt cannot receive clarity. Allowing, on the other hand, dissolves resistance instantly. Allowing is not passive. It is receptive. It is the recognition that what you seek is already moving toward you the moment you stop pushing it away with tension. Allowing is expansion. It is the softening of the inner grip. It is the release of the belief that you must hold everything together. When you allow, you are not giving up your intention, you are giving up the emotional contraction that contradicts it. You are choosing trust over force. You are choosing coherence over urgency. And in that choice, the field can finally respond without distortion. If you feel the shift happening as you listen to this, honor it. Touch the like button as a declaration of alignment, not for the sake of reaction, but as an energetic gesture that says, I am softening. I am opening. I am allowing. This is not a mechanical action, it is an affirmation of frequency. A small external movement that mirrors the internal release taking place within you now. Resistance dissolves the moment you stop fighting your own expansion. Expansion is not a future state, it is the natural response of your being when you stop contracting around fear. When you allow your emotional field to open, even slightly, the universe meets that openness with precision. You begin to notice the subtle shifts, the gentle nudges, the quiet alignments that were previously blocked by your insistence on control. Letting go is not a technique. It is a recognition that the outcome was never yours to force. Your power lies not in manufacturing reality, but in becoming coherent enough for the field to mirror your truth without interference. Every moment of allowing is a moment of alignment. Every moment of alignment accelerates arrival. Resistance fades when you stop holding your breath around your own becoming. When you exhale, the field responds. When you open, reality reorganizes. When you allow, the path reveals itself, not through effort, but through resonance. This is the simplicity and the precision of dissolving resistance. The less you force, the more the universe can move. Contrast is not a mistake in your path. It is the refinement mechanism built into consciousness itself. Every moment that feels like friction, every experience that feels misaligned, every situation that feels dense is not signaling failure, it is sharpening your frequency. Contrast clarifies what you no longer resonate with, and by doing so, it reveals what you are truly aligned with. Without contrast, desire would remain unfocused, unfelt, unformed. Contrast is the sculptor. It chisels away what is no longer you. You do not evolve because life becomes easier. You evolve because you learn to read the energetic feedback life offers you. Contraction shows you where you still hold to an outdated identity. Discomfort reveals where your emotional frequency diverges from your intentions. When you understand this, challenge stops feeling like obstruction and becomes guidance. It becomes calibration. The universe is not testing you. It is tuning you. Every unwanted experience carries information. Not intellectual information, but vibrational information. It shows you the edge of your current alignment. When something feels off, you are not being punished, you are being invited to refine your state. The emotion that arises is the map. Expansion tells you, more of this. Contraction tells you, not this. But instead of resisting contraction, you learn to listen to it. Contraction is the signal that a part of your inner field is misaligned with who you are becoming. That recognition alone shifts the frequency. Desire becomes clearer in contrast. You don't know what peace feels like until restlessness shows you its absence. You don't know what clarity feels like until confusion reveals the need for coherence. You don't know what alignment feels like until misalignment becomes too tight to inhabit. This is not suffering for its own sake. This is refinement. This is precision. This is the field shaping your signal with exacting care. As contrast refines you, your emotional guidance becomes more sensitive, more accurate. You begin to notice the subtle differences between forcing and allowing, between urgency and readiness, between wanting and knowing. These nuances are not intellectual distinctions, they are energetic ones. The more you honor them, the more precise your frequency becomes. And as your frequency becomes precise, the field can respond with unprecedented clarity. The moment you stop resisting contrast is the moment it loses its heaviness. When you recognize it as calibration, it becomes neutral. Then it becomes helpful. Then it becomes a catalyst. Instead of contracting around challenge, you begin using it as a mirror to discover where your alignment is pointing you. You begin to thank the moments that once frustrated you, because they revealed a deeper truth. Contrast pushes you toward coherence by showing you what you are no longer willing to embody. You do not grow by avoiding contrast. You grow by reading it accurately. You grow by recognizing that every misaligned moment is an invitation to return to your natural frequency. And as you accept that invitation, your clarity sharpens. Your signal strengthens. Your path becomes unmistakable. Contrast becomes the tuning fork that reveals the version of you you are now ready to inhabit. Creation does not happen in the future. Revelation does not arrive in the past. The universe meets you only in one place, the present moment. This is the gate. This is the portal through which alignment becomes experience. Every insight, every shift, every moment of readiness emerges here, not as a concept, but as a state of being. Presence is not stillness of the mind, it is coherence of the field. When you are present, your emotional frequency becomes singular instead of divided between what was and what might be. In that singularity, the universe can respond with clarity. The mind is always tempted to project forward, imagining outcomes, timelines, possibilities. But the future is not where creation occurs, it is where creation is expressed. If you wait for the future to confirm your alignment, you postpone the state that allows anything to arrive. When you bring your awareness fully here, without leaning forward or backward, the emotional static dissolves. You shift from effort into recognition. And recognition is the gateway to manifestation. The present moment is powerful because it is the only moment in which your frequency can be felt by the field. Past emotions no longer vibrate unless you recreate them. Future emotions cannot broadcast unless you imagine them. Only the emotion you hold now instructs the universe. This is why readiness is always a now event. You cannot prepare for alignment later. You can only allow it now. And when you allow it, your frequency becomes accessible to the field with absolute precision. Presence is not passive. It is the most active state of creation. It is the state where your energy is no longer scattered across timelines you cannot inhabit. When your attention collapses into the now, your signal becomes coherent. The field reads coherence as readiness. In that instant, you stop trying to force what isn't here and begin tuning to what is already available. The present moment reveals that nothing is missing from your path, only from your awareness. When you are fully present, the emotional patterns of urgency lose their power. Urgency depends on imagining a future where something is lacking. Presence dissolves this illusion. It shows you that clarity is not something you wait for, it is something you meet. The more deeply you inhabit this moment, the more easily you feel the guidance that was drowned out by noise. Insight does not shout, it emerges from stillness. The field does not force, it aligns with the frequency you offer freely. The present moment is the only point at which you can shift identity. It is the only point at which resistance dissolves. It is the only point at which the universe can mirror you. Every timeline you could ever step into is accessed through the now, because your vibration only exists here. When you understand this, presence stops feeling like a pause and becomes your power. It becomes the doorway through which every revelation enters your life. Readiness is not a future event. It is a recognition that occurs the moment you return to yourself, fully, without splitting your awareness. In presence, you become clear enough for the field to meet you. In presence, the universe knows where to find you. Manifestation is never about what you want. It is always about who you are willing to be. Identity is the selector of timelines. Identity is the tuning fork that determines what frequency you broadcast into the field. Desire can point you toward a new reality, but only identity can grant you access to it. The universe does not withhold. It simply mirrors the self you are embodying in this moment. If you remain aligned with an old identity, you will continue receiving the reflections that match it, regardless of how intensely you desire something new. Identity is not your personality. It is not your history. It is the vibration you choose to stabilize within your emotional field. When you hold yourself as someone who is lacking, waiting, or hoping, the field reads that as your instruction. It organizes circumstances that match that state. But the moment you shift into the identity of someone who recognizes their own coherence, everything around you reorganizes. Not because the universe suddenly favors you, but because you have changed the signal that the universe has always been responding to. Identity is frequency. It is the emotional tone that you broadcast without speaking. It is the internal declaration that shapes what you can perceive, what you can receive, and what you can sustain. If you identify as someone who is not ready, you will overlook what is already approaching. If you identify as someone who is aligned, you will notice how the field continually meets you. This is why recognition matters. You must first become the version of yourself who can hold the frequency of what you desire. Only then does the external reflection arrive. Identity shifts are not dramatic. They happen in quiet moments when you stop arguing for your limitations. When you stop describing yourself through your past. When you stop lowering your frequency to match old emotions. Identity rises when you release the version of you that was built on survival and step into the version built on coherence. This shift is subtle, but the field recognizes it instantly. It feels you before you articulate a single word. If the identity you are stepping into feels true, stay within this frequency. Subscribe not as an action of support, but as a declaration that you are choosing to remain inside this field of remembering. This simple gesture anchors your alignment. It mirrors the internal shift you are making right now. The universe does not respond to effort. It responds to embodiment. It responds to the version of you that you are inhabiting emotionally. When you hold the identity of someone who trusts their alignment, the field opens. When you hold the identity of someone who doubts themselves, the field reflects that doubt back to you. This is not punishment, this is precision. The universe cannot mirror an identity you refuse to claim. Identity determines access because your identity is your frequency. And your frequency is the only language the universe speaks. When you shift who you are being, the reality you can receive shifts instantly. Not through force, but through recognition. Not through striving, but through alignment. The moment you decide who you truly are, the universe adjusts everything around you to match. Wanting carries the vibration of distance. It is the emotional declaration that what you seek is not yet here, that you stand separate from what you desire. The universe mirrors that separation with precision. When you want, you broadcast incompleteness. When you yearn, you announce lack. None of this is wrong, it is simply the frequency the field receives. And as long as your signal is shaped by longing, the reflection cannot stabilize into form. This is why the shift from wanting to knowing is so transformative. It changes the instruction you are sending. Knowing is not intellectual certainty. It is energetic certainty. It is the moment your emotional state aligns with the version of you who already holds what you seek. In that shift, effort dissolves. Urgency dissolves. The internal noise created by grasping dissolves. Knowing is quiet. It is calm. It is stable. It does not strain toward the future because it recognizes the future is only the expression of a frequency already held in the present. When you enter knowing, you begin to feel the reality you desire as familiar rather than distant. You feel it as your baseline rather than your goal. Yearning looks outward. Knowing arises inward. Yearning says, I hope this is possible. Knowing says, this already resonates as truth. And once the vibration of truth replaces the vibration of hope, the field responds instantly. Not because it is granting you something new, but because you have stopped pushing it away with the frequency of grasping. You have stopped broadcasting the energetic contradiction of wanting something while feeling unprepared to receive it. The transformation from wanting to knowing happens not through effort, but through alignment. It is the moment you stop trying to create what you desire and start recognizing that your desire is an echo of who you already are. Desire is not a request, it is a memory. It is the field pulling you toward the version of yourself that is already coherent. When you understand this, wanting becomes unnecessary. The need to reach dissolves. What remains is recognition. Knowing is the signal the universe responds to because it is free of tension. It is free of contradiction. It is free of the emotional noise that distorts the field. Knowing is a frequency of allowing, and allowing opens the pathway for arrival. When your inner state stabilizes into knowing, you begin to notice synchronicities not as signs of possibility but as reflections of inevitability. The field starts arranging itself with increased precision because your signal has become consistent enough for the reflection to form. The shift from wanting to knowing is the shift from waiting for external proof to embodying internal truth. It is the collapse of doubt, not through force, but through resonance. You stop trying to convince yourself and simply feel the presence of what you once hoped for. This is not imagination. It is alignment. It is the moment your identity rises to match your desire. When wanting dissolves into knowing, you no longer wait for reality to change. Reality begins changing around the frequency you now hold. Old timelines do not collapse because something external forces them to fall away. They collapse because you stop feeding them with your identity. Every timeline you have ever lived was sustained by the version of yourself you believed you were. When that belief dissolves, the timeline built upon it cannot continue. Alignment does not destroy your past, it simply makes your old emotional patterns incompatible with your present frequency. In that incompatibility, those timelines release themselves. As your inner coherence strengthens, you begin to notice the subtle unraveling of identities you once held tightly. These identities may have been constructed from survival, fear, habit, or repetition. They may have felt necessary once. But as your frequency rises, these identities cannot anchor themselves in your field anymore. They lose their gravitational pull. They begin to crack, not through force, but through irrelevance. You cannot return to them because you no longer resonate with the emotions that sustain them. An old timeline collapses the moment you stop participating in it. This collapse often feels like confusion at first. People, situations, and patterns that once felt familiar begin to feel distant. Certain behaviors no longer make sense. Emotional reactions that once defined you dissolve before they even form. What used to trigger you now feels empty. What used to pull you now releases you. This is the energetic shedding of a version of yourself that has completed its function. When an outdated identity dissolves, it may feel like loss, but it is actually liberation. You are not losing anything essential, you are letting go of what cannot follow you into coherence. You are stepping out of the vibrational agreements you made with your old self. These agreements formed the structure of your previous timeline, and as you break them, the structure dissolves. This is not collapse in the dramatic sense. It is quiet. It is subtle. It is precise. Old timelines fall away because they are no longer aligned with your emotional signature. When you choose clarity over confusion, the timeline built on confusion cannot continue. When you choose openness over fear, the timeline built on fear dissolves. When you choose presence over projection, the timeline built on seeking fades from existence. This is the power of vibrational selection. You do not need to fight the old. You simply need to stop resonating with it. As alignment strengthens, you shift into a new frequency of being. This frequency naturally attracts experiences, insights, and connections that match your emerging state. At the same time, anything misaligned begins to exit. Some exits happen gently. Some happen abruptly. But all of them are precise. The universe never removes what you still resonate with. It only mirrors your inner transformation with external reorganization. The collapse of old timelines is not the end of anything real. It is the release of what was too small to carry who you are becoming. Alignment reveals that your path does not require you to fix the past. It requires you to outgrow it. And as you do, the timelines built on outdated versions of you dissolve effortlessly, making space for the reality that matches your current frequency. Clarity is not something you wait for, it is something you become. And the moment your inner state stabilizes into that clarity, reality begins to reorganize itself with unmistakable precision. External circumstances are not fixed structures. They are fluid reflections, constantly shifting to mirror the frequency you hold. When your inner coherence strengthens, the field around you adjusts. Not gradually, but immediately. The shift may appear subtle at first, but the reorganization begins the instant your signal becomes consistent. Reality does not rearrange itself because you demand it. It rearranges itself because you stop contradicting your own frequency. When your emotions no longer oscillate between doubt and trust, between fear and openness, between forcing and allowing, the field finally receives a clear instruction. And coherence is the most powerful instruction you can send. It tells the universe, this is the version of me that is true now. Everything that matches this state is invited closer, everything that contradicts it begins to dissolve. As clarity stabilizes, you start noticing how external situations shift in response. Conversations feel different. Opportunities appear in places that once seemed stagnant. People who match your new frequency enter your path effortlessly, while those aligned with your old patterns naturally drift away. Nothing needs to be forced. Nothing needs to be controlled. The reorganization occurs through resonance. The moment your frequency changes, what surrounds you must change with it. This is why internal clarity always precedes external movement. If the field were to bring you something before you could hold its frequency, it would slip through your hands. You would not recognize it. You would not sustain it. But once your emotional state aligns with the reality you desire, the universe delivers it in the form you can receive. Clarity is permission. It is the state in which the universe can finally mirror your internal truth without distortion. There is a moment when coherence becomes so natural that what once felt distant suddenly feels inevitable. You feel the shift before you see it. You sense the alignment before it becomes visible. And when circumstances begin to change, you recognize them not as miracles, but as reflections. They are the external result of an internal decision you already made. This reorganization does not always look dramatic. Sometimes it unfolds quietly, through small adjustments that accumulate into a completely different experience of life. A door opens here. A pattern dissolves there. Something that once resisted you becomes effortless. The field responds to your clarity with such synchronicity that it becomes impossible to call it coincidence. Reality rearranges around clarity because clarity is coherence, and coherence is magnetism. When you become clear, you stop sending mixed signals. You stop asking for one thing while vibrating in fear of its arrival. You stop chasing outcomes and begin inhabiting alignment. In that state, the universe is not guessing what you want, it is responding to the frequency you consistently hold. External transformation is always the final step of an internal shift. And when it arrives, it does not surprise you. It feels like recognition. It feels like the world catching up to who you have already become. Receiving is not something you achieve through effort. It is something that happens the moment your internal grasping dissolves. Grasping is the emotional attempt to pull a timeline toward you before you are aligned with it. It is the vibration of fear disguised as desire. It says, if I don't reach for this, it might slip away. But that frequency creates distance. It signals to the field that you do not trust what is unfolding, and the universe mirrors that mistrust with delay, ambiguity, and inconsistency. Grasping closes the channel through which receiving flows. Openness, on the other hand, is the natural state in which receiving becomes effortless. Openness is not passive, it is receptive. It is the recognition that what is meant for you is already moving toward you the moment your inner state stops resisting it. When you release the need to force timing or control the outcome, your energy becomes spacious enough to allow the universe to respond clearly. Allowing is not giving up. It is letting go of the tension that interrupts alignment. The paradox is that the harder you try to receive, the more you block the very thing you're trying to attract. True receiving begins when you stop insisting that the universe confirm your readiness and instead become the frequency of readiness itself. When your inner state relaxes, even subtly, the field feels that softening. It senses that your signal is no longer distorted by urgency or fear. The moment the contraction loosens, the pathway for receiving opens. Openness is a frequency of trust. It is the quiet inner knowing that you do not have to chase what already belongs to your timeline. When you are open, you no longer grip the future. You inhabit the present with enough clarity to recognize the subtle ways the universe is already aligning with you. You stop looking outward for evidence and begin feeling the internal coherence that makes external evidence inevitable. In this state, receiving does not feel like acquisition. It feels like resonance. Grasping always comes from a belief in lack. It assumes the universe is withholding. It assumes timing must be forced. But openness comes from a deeper recognition: nothing is withheld from alignment. Nothing is delayed when your frequency is clear. The universe does not decide when you are ready, your emotional state does. When your vibration becomes steady, grounded, and receptive, the field responds without resistance. This is why receiving feels like a gentle unfolding rather than a dramatic breakthrough. It is not sudden. It is synchronized. True receiving is quiet. It happens when the noise of striving falls away. It happens when you stop negotiating with the future. It happens when you trust that allowing is more powerful than pushing. In this openness, your energy becomes magnetic. You draw reality to you not by force, but by coherence. The universe does not resist you. It simply waits for you to stop resisting yourself. When grasping dissolves, the field can finally deliver what has been trying to reach you all along. And in that moment, you realize that receiving was never about effort. It was about becoming open enough to be met. Momentum does not begin with dramatic transformation. It begins with subtle internal shifts, moments so quiet you could easily overlook them. A softened breath. A release of tension. A decision not to react from an old pattern. These are the small adjustments that alter your entire trajectory. Alignment is not created all at once. It accumulates. It compounds. Each shift in your emotional state becomes a thread in a new frequency you are beginning to inhabit. And once enough threads gather, the timeline you stand upon changes. The field responds to these subtle shifts long before you see their effects. When your inner state becomes even slightly more coherent, the universe reads that as a new instruction. It adjusts your path accordingly, reorienting opportunities, dissolving outdated connections, and amplifying the resonance of what matches your emerging frequency. These shifts may appear insignificant moment to moment, but they carry immense power because they set a new direction. A small adjustment in direction, compounded over time, leads you to an entirely different future. Momentum is the process through which alignment becomes self-reinforcing. When you make one inner shift, it becomes easier to make the next. When you experience one moment of clarity, it naturally leads to another. When you feel a slight expansion, it invites greater expansion. Alignment builds upon itself because coherence is magnetic. It draws more coherence toward it. Once your emotional field begins to stabilize, the path ahead becomes smoother, not because reality has changed on its own, but because you have shifted into a vibration that reality can finally respond to without interference. This momentum is not loud. It is not dramatic. It is subtle, steady, and precise. It shows up in the way you stop needing certain validations. It shows up in how quickly you recover from misalignment. It shows up in the ease with which you release resistance that once felt immovable. As your field becomes more coherent, old patterns lose their influence. The effort they once required to maintain dissolves. You no longer need to fight them. You simply stop resonating with them, and they fade. As alignment gathers momentum, you begin to notice how life reorganizes around you more rapidly. Insights that once took months now appear instantly. Opportunities that once felt distant arrive without warning. Situations that once felt stuck suddenly open. This acceleration is not the universe speeding up, it is you removing the internal friction that slowed the reflection. Momentum increases because your frequency becomes consistent enough for the field to match it without confusion. At a certain point, the momentum becomes unmistakable. You feel carried rather than burdened. You feel guided rather than lost. You feel in flow rather than in conflict. This is the moment you realize that alignment is not a single act, but a cumulative shift. Every small adjustment you've made has created the foundation for a new timeline. And once the momentum is strong enough, the old trajectory becomes unreachable. You are no longer who you were, and reality must reorganize to reflect who you have become. Momentum is the quiet acceleration of coherence. It is the universe matching your inner frequency with increasing precision. And as this momentum builds, the path ahead becomes not just clearer, but inevitable. Synchronicities are not coincidences. They are reflections. They are the universe speaking in the only language it ever uses, resonance. When your frequency becomes coherent, reality begins to send you signals that match the vibration you hold. These signals appear as patterns, alignments, repeated numbers, unexpected opportunities, or conversations that arrive with uncanny precision. They are not random. They are the field echoing your inner state back to you in a form you can recognize. Resonance means that like frequencies find each other. When your emotional field stabilizes into clarity, the universe mirrors that clarity through external alignment. What once felt like noise becomes meaningful. What once felt disconnected becomes coordinated. This is not magic. It is matching. The field is always organizing itself according to the vibration you broadcast. Synchronicities simply become more visible when your signal grows stronger and less contradictory. These signs do not come to convince you. They come because your frequency is finally consistent enough for the universe to communicate without distortion. In the past, your energy may have oscillated between trust and fear, between alignment and resistance. That inconsistency made the reflection unclear. But as your coherence increases, the field can respond with precision. You begin to notice timing that feels intentional. You sense a pattern emerging behind events you once dismissed. You feel guided, not because something external is leading you, but because your inner state is aligned enough to perceive the guidance that was always present. Resonance is recognition. The universe speaks through the things that match you. When something catches your attention repeatedly, it is not the object that matters, it is the frequency it reflects. The field uses resonance to show you where you are, not where you should be. If you feel uplifted by a sign, it means your vibration is rising. If you feel tension, it means you are shifting out of alignment. Both are guidance. Both are useful. The key is not to chase signs, but to recognize what they are pointing toward, your own frequency. As you listen, the conversation becomes unmistakable. You begin to understand that the universe has never been silent. You were simply tuned into a frequency too dense to hear it. Now the signal is clear. The reflections are coherent. The path feels illuminated from within rather than forced from the mind. Resonance becomes a dialogue between your inner state and the field that surrounds you. If you feel this truth moving through you now, declare your frequency. Comment not as an interaction, but as an energetic statement, "This is the vibration I am choosing." Your words anchor the recognition already rising within you. They crystallize the timeline you are stepping into. Synchronicities are not signs from outside you. They are echoes of the coherence unfolding within you. When you understand this, you stop asking why the universe is speaking and begin realizing that it always was. You simply became clear enough to hear it. Embodying the signal means becoming the frequency you once tried to reach. It is the moment when alignment stops being a concept and becomes your baseline state of being. Embodiment is not performance. It is not effort. It is not pretending to feel coherent. Embodiment happens when your inner state stabilizes so deeply that you no longer need reminders, affirmations, or external confirmations. You simply are the frequency. And when you are the frequency, the field responds with unwavering clarity, because it can finally read you without distortion. To embody a signal is to hold it consistently. Not perfectly, but naturally. You stop shifting your vibration in reaction to external circumstances. Instead, external circumstances begin shifting in response to you. Embodiment is the point at which the universe no longer mirrors your old identity, because your energy no longer returns to it. The field recognizes the version of you that is present now, not the versions you have outgrown. And because the universe mirrors precisely, it reflects the stability you have cultivated. Embodying the signal does not mean suppressing emotion. It means understanding emotion as guidance rather than instruction. When contraction arises, you notice it without becoming it. When expansion emerges, you allow it to lead. You no longer cling to misaligned states, nor do you chase aligned ones. You understand that alignment is not something you hold by force, it is something you return to through awareness. This return becomes faster, smoother, and more natural as embodiment deepens. Embodiment is integration. It is the merging of insight with identity. You no longer think about alignment, you operate from it. The clarity that once arrived in flashes becomes continuous. The openness that once took effort becomes effortless. The trust that once wavered becomes the default tone of your emotional field. You begin to feel the world responding to you differently, not because reality has changed, but because you have changed the frequency reality responds to. When you embody the signal, you stop searching for signs and start recognizing yourself as the source of the resonance that attracts them. You no longer attempt to calibrate your state to match a desired outcome. Instead, you inhabit the state that naturally generates that outcome. Embodiment dissolves the gap between where you are and where you think you should be. It anchors you in the identity that aligns with your chosen timeline. This stability creates magnetic precision. The universe can finally deliver without interference because your signal no longer fluctuates. Timelines that once felt distant begin to unfold effortlessly. Choices that once felt heavy become simple. The field no longer questions what you are asking for, because your vibration no longer contradicts it. The clarity you hold draws the matching reflection with a directness that feels almost immediate. Embodying the signal is the culmination of all your internal shifts. It is the moment when alignment becomes who you are rather than what you practice. When you reach this state, you are not waiting for the universe to confirm you. You are broadcasting a frequency the universe cannot ignore. You have become the signal. And once you become the signal, the field responds in one way only, with absolute coherence. Arrival is not a surprise. It is a synchronization. Manifestation appears the moment your frequency becomes stable enough to hold what you have chosen without wavering. The universe does not delay your arrival out of caution or testing. It waits for coherence. It waits for the moment your emotional state stops contradicting the very thing you desire. When your signal becomes steady, the field responds instantly. Not gradually. Instantly. What you call arrival is simply the moment your inner and outer frequencies match with enough consistency for reality to reflect it. The moment of arrival is not something you chase. It is something you align with. When you try to force an outcome, you are signaling instability. You are announcing to the field that you do not yet trust what is unfolding. That internal contradiction slows the reflection. But when you release the urgency to make something happen, your vibration becomes calm, grounded, and open. In that openness, the universe can finally deliver what has been moving toward you all along. Arrival is the natural consequence of coherence. This moment often feels sudden, but it is never random. It is the culmination of countless subtle shifts you made within yourself. Every time you chose presence over projection, you deepened alignment. Every time you released control, you strengthened coherence. Every time you returned to your natural frequency, you created the conditions for arrival. When the moment comes, it feels strangely familiar. It feels like recognition rather than surprise. You recognize it because you have already lived it internally. The external reflection simply catches up. Arrival happens when you stop trying to hold a frequency and begin embodying it naturally. When the emotional state that once required effort becomes your default mode of being, the field can mirror it with precision. The universe is not introducing something new. It is reflecting the version of you that has finally stabilized. And because the reflection is accurate, you feel no strain in receiving it. There is no fear of losing it. You cannot lose what matches your frequency. You can only lose what you cannot hold. The moment of arrival is sacred because it confirms a profound truth: reality does not shift through effort, but through identity. It changes when you become the version of yourself who no longer doubts your own readiness. When your inner world aligns so deeply that the external world has no choice but to reorganize. And when this reorganization crystallizes into form, it feels like inevitability. The universe meets you exactly where you are, not where you were trying to be. Arrival is not the end of anything. It is the recognition of a new coherence within you. It is the point where your inner stability becomes powerful enough to generate external clarity. It is the moment where alignment crosses the threshold into expression. You realize that nothing was ever withheld. You were simply becoming the one who could hold the frequency of what you had already chosen. This is the moment where the universe stops whispering and begins reflecting. The moment where inner alignment becomes outer reality. The moment where everything that once felt distant finally steps into view, not as a reward, but as a match. Readiness was never something you had to chase. It was never something the universe withheld from you. It was never a reward for effort or proof of worthiness. Readiness has always been a state of remembrance. The universe was not waiting for you to achieve something, it was waiting for you to recognize the truth you have carried all along. You are not a small identity trying to influence an external world. You are the consciousness through which that world takes shape. You are the source of the timing you experience. Every moment of delay, every cycle of contrast, every quiet phase that seemed empty was guiding you back to yourself. Not the self shaped by history, fear, or expectation, but the deeper self, the one that exists beneath all conditioning. This self does not strive. It does not grasp. It does not wait for permission. It simply remembers. It remembers its nature as awareness, as presence, as the field through which all timelines emerge. When you touch this remembrance, readiness becomes effortless. You stop asking whether you are prepared. You feel the truth that you have always been the one orchestrating the unfolding. The universe was never testing you. It was aligning with you. It was responding to your frequency with perfect precision, reflecting your internal state with absolute fidelity. The timing you experienced was your own vibration mirrored back to you through the structure of life. When you felt unready, the universe mirrored that. When you moved into coherence, the universe shifted instantly. You were never waiting on the universe was responding to the version of you that you were inhabiting in each moment. When you recognize yourself as consciousness, you understand why readiness is not earned. Consciousness cannot be unready. It cannot be incomplete. It cannot be lacking. What changes is not consciousness itself, but your identification with it. As you dissolve the layers of contraction, doubt, and self-imposed limitation, you reveal the frequency that has always been beneath them. That frequency is clarity. That clarity is readiness. And readiness is remembrance. You are not preparing for the universe to give you something. You were preparing to recognize that you were the one generating the signal the universe was following. Every timeline you stepped into was selected through your vibrational identity. Every opportunity that arrived did so through resonance with your state of being. Every moment of alignment was you meeting yourself in a new form. When this recognition lands, something shifts permanently. You stop seeing yourself as separate from the unfolding. You feel yourself as the source of it. You were always the one the universe was waiting for because the universe is not something outside you. It is the reflection of your conscious state. It is the mirror that reveals who you are becoming. It is the expression of the frequency you choose to hold. When you remember this, the journey no longer feels like striving toward a distant horizon. It becomes an unfolding from the inside out. You realize that every moment was guiding you here, to the understanding that you are, and always have been, the origin of your own alignment.